Hello, I'm Caryn Dunlop, and today I wanted to talk about the two most expensive words in business. They're two little words and they can be translated into nearly any language. In fact, they don't always have to be spoken for large sums of money to be left on the table. So I hope that's got you thinking a little bit. Those two little words, the most expensive words in the business world, are simply, I know. So think about that little phrase for a moment, I know. Now, most people have either had teenagers or know a teenager. And so teenagers, you try and tell them something that something new, something different, and you'll generally get a fairly typical reaction of, I know. And it usually be accompanied by crossed arms, close body language, I know. Most parents at that point are simply going to roll their eyes and move on to something different. Now in business, if you're trying to deal with somebody with that kind of attitude, how do you deal with them? Would you even bother to engage with them? What do you think about them? How would you describe them? Now, some people might say that they were small-minded, or that they were arrogant, or maybe even ignorant. So some pretty unpleasant words and fairly strong words in there as well. And unfortunately, this attitude can be quite pervasive in the small to medium-sized businesses because we've been doing this a long time. So we feel like we've mastered every aspect of our business, and so we know everything there is to know because we've survived this far. So now we've got the visualization of what the body language looks like. What does it sound like when you hear it? Now, it's not unlikely to simply say, I know, but it could sound like, I'm too busy, or I already know everything there is to about this, or there's nothing you can teach me. Or it might be a little bit subtler than that. It might be, nobody around here does what they're supposed to do. Or it could be, if people did their jobs right. So there's that subtle undertone where they know everything, but everybody else doesn't. These really, really expensive words can have a big impact on things. And I've talked about setting your RAS in other videos. And so when you're setting your RAS, you're setting yourself open to receive opportunities and potential. And with the words, I know, you close yourself off to opportunities, potential. You're not hearing, you're not listening to what's available out there for you. So how do we turn that round? Well, we turn it round with another two little words. Really good ones, much, much more powerful. And those two words that turn around that attitude are simply, that's interesting. That's interesting. By saying the two words, that's interesting, you suddenly open things up. So Aristotle said it takes an intelligent man to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. And so that idea, that concept of entertaining, thinking about something, you don't have to accept it, you don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, but it's just that idea of thinking about it, giving yourself that space to contemplate and consider something before making a decision. And it's that space that can be really, really powerful. So that space gives you the ability to step back and make some really, really good decisions. Now, that might be looking at your business. It might be evaluating products or services that are available to you. It might be evaluating yourself and maybe the way that you've made some previous decisions as well. It's also a really, really useful technique when you're speaking to people. So if you are at a networking event, for example, and somebody expresses an opinion on the NHS that's completely opposite to yours, you can simply say, rather than getting involved in a heated debate in the middle of a networking meeting, you simply say, that's interesting. So you've taken on board their comments. You're not disagreeing, but you're certainly not agreeing, and it gives you that scope to be able to take on board something without agreeing with it. When we're taking on board feedback, our primitive chimp brain tends to take that as aggression or telling us that we're inadequate. We don't always respond to it or deal with it very well. So that's interesting. Gives us again space to consider what's being said and how we can react to that. So it might be some negative feedback from a team member, one of your employees, or a peer, or even a customer. If you want them to elaborate and explain a little bit further and perhaps put their thoughts across a little more cohesively, then that's interesting, followed by silence. They will need to fill that space, and they will generally do that by elaborating what they said and explaining why they have that view or that opinion. If you want to close down the conversation, however, then you might all move it onto a much more constructive platform. Then what you could say is, that's interesting. I'm not sure now is the right time and place for that, but how about we pick up on Thursday, let's say 10:30? And that way you formalize the conversation rather than it being a corridor conversation or a corridor complaint for that matter. So you've heard about the two most expensive words in business, but you've also heard about the two most powerful words in business. That's interesting. It really broadens up your horizons, gives you great scope. So what I'd like you to do is play with those two words. So firstly, gauge other people's reactions when you use those two words, how they respond to that. You should find it's quite a positive reaction. But more importantly, gauge how that makes you feel. and the opportunities that you see as a result of using those 2 words. I'd really love to hear some comments, see how it's worked for you and the experiences you've had. So please do put a comment in the comments box. Thank you so much.